Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unlocked, where we talk about unlocking the potential of you, the people you work with, and the people you do life with. At the time of this recording, I'm offering all of you, yes, my lovely listeners, a free 15-minute communication coaching call. You come with some kind of communication problem, and I give you a solution. My calendar link is in the show notes, so check that out. Have you ever had anybody ask you to give them a little grace? Yeah. Well, we're going to talk all about that today. Grace is the topic of the day, and John Baldoni is the man to talk about it. Why? Because he's written 3 books on it, and we're going to talk about his latest one here today. John Baldoni is a certified master corporate executive coach who works with senior leaders in corporate, nonprofit, and university environments. He specializes in helping executives communicate with clarity and conviction to internal and external audiences. John's communication skills. So he hosts a LinkedIn live show called Grace Under Pressure. He's interviewed about 250 different authors, executives, and global thought leaders on his show. John is the author of 16 books, and he was named number 2 thought leader in coaching in 2023. And a top 10 thought leader for both leadership and management in 2022. In 2024, Global Gurus ranked John a top 10 global leadership expert, and he's been on that list since 2007. In 2018, Inc.com named John a top 100 speaker, and Trust Across America honored John with his Lifetime Achievement Award for Trust. So I guess you can trust what John has to say. In 2014, Inc.com also listed John as a top 50 leadership expert. He's a member of 100 Coaches, which is a select group of business, science, and medicine coaching thought leaders founded by none other than the Marshall Goldsmith. So we're going to get on with this interview. Got a lot to share with you. You're going to get something out of this. And if you don't get into the grace topic, which you should, and you will, because John knows what he's talking about there, we talk a little AI and what John did to actually create a little bit of himself in a digital form. So yeah, we're going to get to that. Here we go. John, it is a privilege having you on the show today. I'm excited to talk about all the things we're going to talk about.
Well, Scott, I appreciate that. You're a great interviewer, so I'm looking forward to some great questions, and let's have some fun.
Well, you just put a little pressure on me, John. So, man. Okay. Well, here goes. You ready? I am going to ask you, here's my first brilliant question for you, John, is what in the world makes you want to write 16 books? I just wrote one. I just released it in December last year. And I'm like, I'm taking a break for about 12 more years, and then we'll see how it goes.
Well, don't beat yourself up. I'm not the best and the brightest. I'm just a slogger. The reason is my original career was I was a writer. I'm an English major, so I knew how to write. I was a speech writer, and so I migrated naturally into it. So writing is at the core of what I have to say. And so I'm one of those. Peter Drucker once wrote an article about managing oneself, and he said that you need to know how you learn. He said, I learn by speaking aloud. And for many years, and so he was a teacher, of course, taught many people, mentored them. I was the opposite. I learned by writing, and then I would, verbalize it later. I've kind of become ambidextrous, if you will, or go back and forth. So writing was inherent to what I do. And I also am I like to be a storyteller. And so it came naturally to me. So I don't have any more books on the horizon per se in prose, but I'm migrating very much toward poetry. So that's my new exciting venture. So
You are the artist. You are totally. I mean, it's just, watching what you do and how you speak and the way you promote your books. I mean, everything involves music in some way, shape, or form, right? Mostly the piano that you use to interject that little personality into everything you do. So poetry, I'm not surprised, John. I'm not surprised by that next step. That's very, very, very cool. Let's talk about your latest one, though. Let's talk about this idea of grace. So tell us about the book. Tell us why, and this isn't the first book on grace you've written. So tell us about it.
Well, thank you for mentioning that. My newest book is called Grace Under Pressure, Leading Through Change and Crisis. It is the third book in a trilogy on the topic of grace. My first book came out in June of 2019, I think. And then, as now, sadly, we were, riven by coarse discourse. So I could have written a screed, but what's the point? So I thought back to my origins. I was raised, or had parents who lived in a spirit of grace. My mother was very community focused. My father was a family physician. I was educated by the Jesuits, so I learned about service toward others. And so the topic of grace was not something that we talked about at all, but I saw examples of it. And grace is a concept that I define it as the catalyst for the greater good. And so my first book was called Grace, A Leader's Guide to a Better Us. And I broke grace down into an acronym. It's generosity, respect, compassion. But it's also action if you're a leader, and then energize the organization, which is the E in the word grace. And that's good. And there's a lot of, practical knowledge in there. And then COVID struck, and it was perfect. It hit the right chord for COVID. Because people were thinking about seeking to community, if you will, with others. And so I wrote a little book which was my first venture in poetry, called Grace Notes, Leading in an Upside Down World. And it was a series of reflections, very short, about resilience, empathy, all types of things that leaders should be thinking about so they can share with their people. Then I decided, if I'm going to make grace as a business topic, I need to give it my word, muscle. So the phrase that we've heard is grace under pressure. It's a phrase that comes from Hemingway. He wrote it in a letter to Dorothy Parker, a fellow author. And it was picked up by John Kennedy speechwriter Ted Sorensen for their book Profile in Courage. And the way both Hemingway and Kennedy defined grace under pressure was the sense of courage when things are when you're under pressure. I've broadened it, especially to when times of crisis and change, what do leaders need to do? Well, they need to do three things, okay? And that's one, take care of their people. Two, take care of themselves. And three, prepare for the future. That's not rocket science. Everybody knows those kinds of things. But the difference is how you do it. And so I have defined grace more broadly in many chapters, short chapters, on topics of the connection toward others. And what connection does is we lead with candor, we lead with courage, we make commitments. And what does this all add up to, Scott? It adds up to community. And that's really and grace becomes that facilitation, the catalyst for the greater good. We build community. And that's what really all of us are looking for. So.
Yeah. Can I read a little section of what you said in your book here?
Please do.
You said, in essence, grace establishes a foundation for mutual understanding and respect on which strong communal ties can thrive. It gives people the confidence to connect wholeheartedly to leaders and each other without fear of recrimination. This is how the best leaders foster robust, supportive communities, even in turbulent times. So you talk about communal, you talk about connection, you talk about this idea of, I'm going to throw the word psychological safety in there because you're talking about I can bring up things without fear. Supportive communities in turbulent times. I mean, in that one paragraph, like you've hit on this idea of grace and why it is so profound.
Oh, very much. It's psychological safety. And I know Amy Edmondson, who pioneered that concept. And I was writing the book and it echoed with her. I've quoted her many times before. And it's kind of all settled in my brain. It took me a while to go, oh, yeah, that's really what community is all about. Because we're looking for the sense of belonging. That doesn't mean we all agree with one another, but we respect one another, and we have the ability to voice our opinions. We feel basically that we belong. All right. And that's really the essence of psychological safety in many ways. So,
Yeah, there's a there I think there's a feeling out there in the world of like, especially it seems now, and I don't know if this is different for you, if it's different for me, maybe it's the circles I'm in, but there's a drive for KPIs, a drive for financial health and growth. And we run, our clients, they run organizations. They need to be profitable. They need to hit those numbers. They need to make sure they're pushing and challenging their people. Where does grace play into that whole narrative?
well, I mean, you can do it with your people or in spite of your people. So how much better is it to do it with people? Now, the concept of grace is that connection, the catalyst for greater good. That doesn't mean, but businesses are not run as social safety networks. Okay, we leaders owe it to their people to listen and learn from them and nurture and grow together. So that's a form of grace as well. But of course, there's the management imperative. You have to make your numbers. What grace does is that ability to say that I care. I think essentially what we talk a lot about empathy. Empathy is a first step. Empathy is that I understand where someone's coming from. I can feel their discomfort, but I can also feel their joy. That's something we don't talk about a lot. But for a leader, empathy is really the first step. The real step is compassion. What does it mean to lead with compassion? The caring, the commitment, doing for others. And when you build that doing for others, that's community. And when people feel that they belong in an organization or on a team, they will do for one another and they'll do for the boss. And you're going to make your numbers because people feel that they, belong and they want to achieve. They want to achieve. It's a team. I mean, it's not unlike a sports team. It's that we're all for one, one for all. I mean, is that altruistic? Of course it is. But really, when highly functioning, high-performing teams, that's what the essence of it is. And those that click are those that have feelings for one another on a human level, and they'll do for them. I'll cover for you as you cover for me. And when they know their boss has their back, they'll go that extra mile, just as they will. And that'll trickle down to how they relate to their direct reports or their teammates. So it's that team, that cohesion. That's really what it's all about. So.
And I think we talk about this a lot. I think that, and I would almost argue that most leaders out there, I think, especially some of the younger generations or whatnot, understand this concept. The idea of it. They really think like, I know, help my people, feel good about it, get teamwork together, make sure we're doing some team building stuff, make sure we're cohesive as a unit, etc. But they still don't do it, right? They still don't do it. So why not?
Some may feel uncomfortable. Some may feel, well, that's too soft. That's soft stuff. I don't know how to make that first step. So how do you make the first step? You've heard this more than 1,000 times. Listen. How's it going, Scott? How is that project coming? How's it doing? How are you doing? And then anything I can help you with, Scott. And I do that to all the members of the team, one-on-one, in a group. What do you need me to do? So pretty soon it kind of sticks together. So Alan Mulally was great, who ran Ford Motor Company when they were in very dire circumstance. He took over. The company had just lost $25 billion, which is not a really a great place to be. But what Alan did, and I know him, was that ability to bring people together. How did he do that? Well, he had what he calls the business plan review. All his direct reports were met on Thursday morning in the morning, and they all shared their stories. And the thing about not just sharing their stories was, how can we help one another? He used to call, Alan had this kind of altruistic thing. We used to call him the Boy Scout because he was so cheerful. How can we work together? How can we do this? How can we pull together? And he got them to work together, and it worked remarkably well. So, but that first step is, I think, listening, first of all, and what do you need me to do? And then what can we do for one another? So in Alan's case, at Ford Motor Company, if someone was having a challenge in marketing or manufacturing, he would say, well, who can help so-and-so do this? Or how can we pull resources to do that? So the team will figure it out together. So it becomes a joint enterprise. It's not leadership down per se, it's leadership across. So, and from below.
And is that what you've seen in your career? I mean, you've coached, for decades, right? And been in this space and worked within a lot of different companies, large and
Well,
small. I mean, is that what you're saying?
I don't, I see the most successful organizations are where bosses care about their people and people feel it. Okay. And again, there are successful organizations which are not pleasant to work in. Let's be honest. Let's put that aside. I'm not going to mention who they are, but we know who they are. But how much better for people to come to work where they don't feel the overstressing on rivalries or pleasing the boss and all those other kind of stuff. That's all going to be part of the the management process and our management culture. But and so it's so much better when people get along with one another, cooperate. Now, as a boss, listening. And so, if, Scott, you tell me, well, I'd like to take every Friday off. I will listen to you, but I'm not going to be obligated to give you every Friday off. But I'll listen to you and I'll listen to your reasons. So, and the same thing. So if you come to me, the other thing is say, hey, boss, I got this great idea about X, Y, Z. I'll say, well, okay, what are your reasonings for it? And go through it. And I go, Scott, it's a great idea, but it's not right for our team at this point. But let's shelve it for a moment. I want you to put your energies on X, which is where we need to focus now. So I'm listening to you, but I'm not doing everything you're asking me to do. And that's a difference. So I think leaders who, as you said, feel that if they listen and they support their people, they'll have to do whatever their team wants them to do. No, just give them the courtesy of saying that I'm with you, I understand, but here's our directives. We need to put the KPI, we need to deliver on that.
So is that grace? I mean, that doesn't sound like grace to me, but I want you to spin it. How was that grace?
Well, the listening and the learning is an extension of it because it's a courtesy. When you listen to someone, it means that you value them. And that is a form of grace. You're treating them with dignity. Now, and the other thing about it is, can it be it's listening to others, especially when you're very busy, is a chore. Let's be honest, okay? Because you got a lot of things going on if you're in management. But taking the time to listen shows that you care about them as individuals. Now, if they barge into your office and say, boss, you go, let's cool it for a moment, Scott, and let's table this and I'll talk to you, next time or whatever it is. So you set parameters about it. But I think that what grace comes down to is that connection. Are we listening to one another? Are we doing for one another? Are we doing for the team? So, so that is kind of this, how can we do the betterment for all of us so that all of us succeed?
Okay. All right. That's good. I like that. And I think it plays into this idea as you were talking to like that I think about it is, I'm showing grace by listening, by accepting who you are, by seeking to understand where you're coming from, even if I don't fully get it, right? Even if I don't like be able to give you that allowance, I think is generally, I guess, what we would think about with grace. Am I thinking about that right?
Yeah, I think, it's Stephen Covey said, seek to understand before you persuade or whatever it is. So where's the other person coming from? And also when new directives come up, give people a voice in that. What do you think about that? What's your point? And then maybe you'll say, hey, could we do this? And maybe it's a good idea. Could we, delay this a little bit, or should we accelerate this? Whatever. But at least I'm listening, and I'm giving you an opportunity to voice your opinion about it. And so that when you, this is psychological safety, when you voice your opinion, at least you're heard. Okay. And that's important. So it's not rocket science. So,
And when I was reading this section of your book, you referenced Ted Lasso in this. You a big Ted Lasso fan?
oh, I've written 3 columns on Ted Lasso. Yeah.
Have you?
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Tell me about the Ted Lasso experience, and
Well,
how you're
Ted
tying
Lasso,
this
I mean,
thing in here.
it's a wonderful, first of all, it's a wonderful series. And let's be honest, it's fictional and it's comedic, but it's dramedy. And what, that's the new word, dramedy, comedy. So it's dramedy, whatever it is. The series evolved, and I probably don't get it at first, but I mean, Ted led with kindness, okay, and how
Mhm.
unusual is that? And okay, got people to believe in themselves, but where it led to, but get to believe in yourself and you can achieve. As the series evolved, what it really built was community. So by the third season, there was a community for the team, there was a community for the business environment, and then there was a community of the fans. And so everybody, and that's what great teams engender. They're all one for all for one. Everybody gets in it, and it's exciting. And that's an essence of a way to look at community. We feel that we belong. If you're a fan, are you really contributing? Well, in a way, yeah, you're cheering, you buy the merchandise, whatever it is, but you feel you're part of something bigger. And then that shared experience with fellow fans, there's a joy, there's a personal connection there. Now, on the team itself, they feel that coming from the fans, but they, as a team, know that they're going to put that extra effort in because they want to do their best for themselves, but for the cohort on the team, but also for their manager, Ted Lasso, and for the fans and for the boss and the whole thing. I'm feeling I'm working for a greater cause than just scoring goals. I'm helping our community, those kinds of things. That's really what teamwork is all about. So,
And how would you recommend that leaders maybe take that initial step? Because I think they see the big picture of like, my people, we've got community, and my people, we're together, we're one in heart, one in mind. We are all achieving the same, like, leaders, that's their desire. Okay. But I think they see it as like a giant boulder that they have to roll uphill. And then they go, I just don't want to worry about it right now. I've got 4 years to turn this thing around or whatever. And they're thinking, I don't, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. If you're not on board, just whatever, let me know so I can find somebody else.
right.
But what is like some of the initial steps you can take implementing grace, but to build the community that you're really looking for?
Well, first of all, is the Buddha saying, be the example that you want to be. So, you as the boss, they see you listening. They see you doing for others. They see you advocating for them. And then they'll see that, the results of that. They'll see your failures. Do you admit mistakes? Those kinds of things. Are you leading for the team? Or are you leading for yourself? So it's behavior. They're watching you. You're always on stage. So be that example for you, and then have open discussions. It's interesting. There's a mantra that I have borrowed from the military. It came out of Vietnam, and it was U.S. military. And it was called. I'm blanking on who did it, but but the famous colonel then became a general. But it was 3 things. He was seen in a firefight. Asking himself, what's happening, what's not happening, what do I need to do to influence the action? And what he was doing was, and I use that as a mantra for every team, for teams to do that. So you have your staff meeting, what's happening? So people can easily say, okay, well, we're doing this, the activities. That's easy to diagnose. Then what's not happening? Well, are people engaged? Are customers engaged? Is there absenteeism? Do we short on resources? All of these what are the problems? What are the challenges? The third step is, what do we do about it? So from the manager's point of view is, what do I need to do? Well, you may need to be, if it's short on resources, you need to go to senior management and ask for more resources or extra bodies or whatever. But it's also shouldn't be just you. What can you, Skot, do? What do you need to do? Do you need to help with Sally? Do you need to work with Deepak? Do you need to do this? And what can Deepak do for Sally? These kinds of things. So we're fixing these problems, but we're doing it collaboratively and cooperatively. That's the challenge. That's how you get. So what's happening? What's not happening? What can I do to influence the outcome? So
I like that. I like that. So, John, we're going to turn this whole interview on its head. Oh, yes.
I
Yeah.
like that.
Because I know you're ready for it too. I know you're up for it. We're going to introduce AI into this whole discussion. Because you're kind of doing something a little different than some others when it comes to AI. And what are you doing? Introduce us to that. What drove that idea? And like, is this thing supposed to take the place of John? Like introduce it.
Well, it's called the Baldoni chatbot, and it's on my website. And it's a little blue question mark. You can go in there and ask questions about it. I call it management questions, leadership answers. So little thing. Where did the idea come from? It came from my friend and call him a mentor, Marshall Goldsmith. Marshall has been working on his bot for 4 or 5 years now. And COVID put it back a little bit, and then Marshall resurrected the concept, or at least verbalized it to us. And I thought, I've got some content I'd like to share too. So I worked with a colleague of mine, a fellow member of 100 Coaches, Mahesh Thakur, and he said, I can help you build this. So all credit to Mahesh and his team. Number one colleague is Pavan. And they put together this. What it's done is it's sourced my published works, if you will, my books and maybe my interviews, many of my columns. I've written over 1,000 and all munched it up. So it's exclusive to my content. It's not. So if you ask it who the president is, it's not going to know that. But if you ask about how can I resolve a conflict, you probably get an answer. So the idea is it's an advisory. It's a self-coaching tool per se. The way I use it is my clients, I say, if I'm coaching a colleague, not a colleague, whatever, a client, and they're having a challenge with it, I'll say, go ask the bot about X, or you have them use the bot so they can challenge, come up with conflict management or insights into resilience, that kind of stuff. So it's not formal coaching. It's an advisory, if you will. So that's really what it is. And it's all based on my materials. Of course, I quoted a lot of other people, so that's in there too. But I want it to be exclusive to just my stuff as opposed to Chat GPT, which anybody can use. So, and it's a good thing.
Okay. That's cool. I love it. Like, I got a whole bunch of nerdy questions to ask about, but not for this show. Not for this show. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something that I have never done before. I'm going to pull up your website on this thing. If so we can kind of see this thing in action. If that's cool with you,
Absolutely.
I've got it pulled up here. For those of you listening on audio, the website is johnbaldoni.com. You can go there, check this out. Blue button, bottom right-hand corner. You click this thing. Okay, I'm so fascinated because I was playing with it a little bit earlier. So you said earlier, like, how can I resolve a conflict? So I don't know. We'll see if it pops up with something here. Chatbot John. I never have to pay for John's advice ever again. I just go read all your books, and then I could also go to the chatbot, and I just got an answer. So here's some tips you can offer. So it says I can offer based on my diagnose the root cause, find out why coworkers are in conflict with one another. Often the roots of the discord lie in the things that occurred long ago. Stay high and dry if the problem originated before you became manager. Acknowledge hurt feelings, but don't take sides. You said diffuse the conflict by making cooperation mandatory. Establish a no tolerance policy for disagreements over people and personalities. Hold everyone accountable. Find common ground. Get the conflict parties to identify shared values. Make it clear that discord is destroying the value. Follow through, even after people stop fighting, continue monitoring the situation, etc. So that's pretty solid, John. Hey,
well, I mean, it's what Mahesh Thakur has taught it to be is it reflects my voice. Have I written every one of those words? Maybe, probably. It sounds pretty accurate. Go back to it and let's do something else.
Okay. Cool.
Or
All right, let me pull it up.
if you want to, we'll experiment.
No, let's do it.
Uh,
Let's do it. For all of
say,
you watching on YouTube, you got a
write,
gift here. So
okay,
let's do it.
so in there,
Mhm.
write me a poem about resilience.
What? You're going I get to write, you're going to write me a poem?
Well, I hope. We'll see what comes up.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if it goes. Um, Chatbot is thinking, did I spell resilience right? Is it
Yep,
ENC?
there it is. Look at that.
Oh my goodness, it is ENC in it, even
Uh,
despite my bad spelling. Okay, here's the poem about resilience. Bend, don't break. So you've never written this poem before, John.
nope.
Okay,
Well,
bend,
I
don't
haven't
break.
used this prompt before. Yeah, this is actually published, but I didn't write this. And the
Nice.
bot
Okay.
wrote this. Yeah.
When storms of life assail me, I stand resilient, tall. The winds may fiercely gale me, I will not fall. My roots grow deep within me, my limbs flex but don't snap. Adversity can't win me. I bounce back from each rap. With courage I recover, regain my rightful place. Tempered, I'm now tougher. To life's blow I can face. So batter on, O worldly woes. Do your worst, I say. My resilience ever grows. Bend me down, I'll sway. You'll never find me broken. I'm pliant but still whole. Buffet me without token. My spirit you can't soul. For I'm resilient ever. You'll not make me crack. I'll bend and bend, never let you break my back. What what do you think about? Okay, let me ask you, what do you think about that, John?
Well, first of all, it's the kind of it's my thinking. The expression is put into verse. So, as I told you earlier, I'm interested in writing poetry. The poetry I write
Mhm.
is not in this style. And would I tweak a word here or there? Of course I would. But what it is, it's kind of like Hallmark card advice. That's really what it is. And so
Okay.
I've
All
actually
right.
I'm actually experimenting with greeting cards with some of these things. So yeah, it's why I did this was on a whim. But what I'm trying to do is show the idea of creativity and leadership expression, so that
Mhm.
if it prompts somebody to borrow their thought and use it with their team, fine, okay. But if it also borrows them to think, hey, I can be creative in how I pitch my ideas or how I express myself, great. It's just another way to reach, get my message out or get a message out for the other people can learn from it in new and different ways. That's really what it's all about.
That is so fun. And I mean, I was wondering if it was written in your style, if it was like written in John's
It's
poetry style, but it probably
no,
doesn't know
it's
that
not
yet.
the way I would write poetry. It's more, as I said, it's more Hallmark style, but the
Yeah.
thinking is mine. So whatever that is. So I can't
So
take
cool.
credit for writing it. I take credit for the thought behind it. So think of it this way:
Mm.
I'm a creative director, and I have an assistant who's my copywriter, which happens to be an AI copywriter. Put it that way.
And I hope that people will listen to that and think of AI as that. A lot of people are like, "Oh, AI is going to take this and AI is going to do that." And I said, AI still needs the creative direction. AI still needs, for now, right? AI still needs that direction and that thing to go off of because it's still sourcing information from everywhere. Um, and so I if you use it to that, it's such a powerful resource. I think people need to embrace it in
Right.
all aspects of life. I
And
think
I'll
it's
tell
fun.
to your audience too, if you, I have challenged, and I post regularly on LinkedIn, but I post some of the FAQs I've asked this. And just the other day, I posted something about design a workshop on the topic of resilience. So it came up with some thoughts. So if you have to do a workshop on resilience, maybe these are some thoughts you can put, how you'd organize it, stuff like that. That's my perspective. It's a start. It's a thought starter for you. So.
That it is. That it is. I love it, John. I love it, man. Um, so I wanted to hit on that. It didn't necessarily have to do with grace, but that's such a unique aspect and tool that you have come up with to embody what you do as a leadership coach, as executive coach, as the person that goes into organizations. And now you're providing another resource for those that are listening or anywhere out in the world to go and get access to your brain without having to talk directly to you, which is pretty cool. I like it.
Well, thank you.
Where can people get a hold of your books? Where can people get a hold of you? Obviously, if they want, they could just go to the chat bot. But other than that, what else can people do?
Well, the best place to find me is johnbaldoni.com, and you can send me an email at john@johnbaldoni, or do it through the website, or just remember, john@johnbaldoni. All my books are on Amazon, so that's where they are. Both, many of them are in Kindle, or half of them are, or a good number of them are on Audible, as well as paperback and hardback. So it's there. Cool. Or you can also find them in used too. A lot of remainder books.
There you go. So there you go. Is there and you're out speaking a lot right now?
I'm speaking, yes. So right.
Yeah. So people are interested in that, go to your website.
Yep. Thank you for that. Yeah. I speak I've got a big event coming up next month. So I'm looking forward to that. To an HR community. What do you know? So
nice. I love HR people. What is your what's your key topic? What do you like to hit on most?
Well, believe it or not, I talk about the topic of grace under pressure. Believe it or not.
Really? Imagine that.
But I also talk about leading with influence, which leading from the middle, leading with purpose, book topics that I've done. But right now, my top of mind topic is grace. That's what people want to hear from me. So, and I talk about it from the business standpoint, but how you can make grace work for all of us together to stimulate that community, so we all get better results for ourselves because we feel that we belong, but also for the team and the organization.
Love it. And if anybody wants to hear you play the piano, they can just go to your website and see you play there, while they're also getting some leadership lessons. So there's that too.
I post something every on Mondays on LinkedIn, so you can check that, or just do John Baldoni Music. You'll find stuff there. So
very cool. Man, you are just like one thing after another, John. You don't stop, do you?
Well, I'll be very frank with you. I'm in the sunset of my career, so I'm not. I got a few more laps around the corral here, but I'm having fun.
Well, you should be, and people need to be having fun in whatever they're doing. And if you're not, then you should reevaluate a couple of things, because life is fun and life should be fun. And that is what we're doing. So thanks, John, for teaching us today and sharing your thoughts with us and your heart and your mind. And it's all been good. Thanks, man.
Well, Scott, you're a terrific interviewer, and I love how you turned the card upside down. That was fun. So thank you.
If you want to create just a little more community inside your organization, because community is really what we're looking for. Yeah. I mean, we say alignment and we say collaboration and we say these types of words, but really what we want is community, because when we have community, we have that cohesiveness and we have psychological safety, because we don't necessarily always have to agree, but I have to be able to speak my mind and feel the freedom to speak my mind and be in a space where I can speak my mind without fear of reprimand and fear of being shut down and consequences and all this other stuff, right? Now, healthy boundaries are important, but I really want to understand this idea of community, and grace is a way we get there. Grace by showing you that, by allowing that, by inviting that into it, by being the example of grace inside my organization. I can help spread and build the community I'm looking for. That I love this idea that grace is really a catalyst for the common good, the greater good, a catalyst for the greater good. I'm not going to edit that out because I just corrected it. The catalyst for the greater good, and that we take care of people, we take care of ourselves, we prepare for the future, those things of how we handle stress, and grace is the key to that. Connection. How do we build that more? Well, not only could you ask his chatbot about it, but you do it through grace. I think that idea of grace is really, really important. I just posted something about it last week on LinkedIn. Not totally know what we were going to talk about on this interview this week. and it just so happened to be the same topic. Thanks, John, for being on the show. If you want to find out more information about me or check out the show notes where there's going to be more information and links to the things referenced in this episode, visit skotwaldron.com. And lastly, I'm asking for a little bit of love, just a little bit. So please take a moment, follow, rate the show. The algorithms like that. It helps me get the word out. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And until next time, stay unlocked.